Okay, I think we're live. We'll just wait a second here as we get Rockfin hitched and streaming as well. This is Adiad's Public Intelligence GA poll Peach State update with the gubernatorial candidate for the Libertarian Party of the state of Georgia, Shane Hazel. And this is the first time I've interviewed Mr. Hazel. And Shane and I hopefully we're going to talk again. We are going to be talking about the pending general election for the Libertarian Party. And I was just telling Shane off camera about Debbie Dooley talking to me earlier today, Atlanta Tea Party president, about a goal for the Libertarian Party of getting a one candidate with that 20% of the ballot, which I believe gets them on the whole ballot. I don't know if it's indefinitely or not, but we can probably get into that. But I just wanted to thank you, Shane Hazel, for coming on the show. And if you want to, add anything to your introduction, other than I do want to, talk about your military background. I believe you were in the Marines for a period of time, and then kind of how you got interested into libertarian way of thinking. And anywhere else you want to take it, sir.
Okay. Yeah, man. I really appreciate you having me on, Addy. Very, it's a growing number of people that are asking the Libertarian to come on. It must mean we're in some crazy times, right? So,
Yeah.
yeah, man. I appreciate it. I guess if we're gonna to do this, yeah, the whole backstory with the military. I guess you grow up in a very patriotic family, and they bleed red, white, and blue, and you go to the government youth indoctrination camps and you say the Pledge of Allegiance every morning, and they whitewash history, and they tell you just about how star spanglingly awesome we are. Well, it's one of those things. I was in my third year, about to go in my fourth year of college, 21 years old, and slinging freight for Home Depot overnight and going to school during the day, man. And 9/11 happened, kind of changed the world, right? And I mean, I was 21, so it's weird to think of that over 20 years ago now, but that day is one of those days that will just be burned in your brain forever. And
Where were you living
it's
at the time?
I was out in Decula. Lived in Gwinnett County in Decula at the time, and
Okay.
is one of those things where I went home and had some things on my mind, and over the course of the next couple of days kind of sorted them out and ran down to the Marine Corps recruiter and said, "Hey man, what do you know about recon?" And my recruiter obviously lied to me and said, "Dog, they're snooping and pooping, snooping and pooping." And I joined the Marine Corps and had a lot of early success. A little bit older than a lot of guys, and I think that really helped me out. And just the fact that I was a runner to begin with, great physical condition. Like I like to PT, man. It's just one of those things where I like to get out and get after it. Always have. And so I went in, man, and was met with early success and graduated as the honor grad from pretty much every school I ever went to in the Marine Corps. And then I got my choice of duty stations, and I got to pick the legendary First Force Reconnaissance Company, which was kind of like the premier unit, special operations capable out in California. And so took that ride out there, did a couple of deployments with those guys, and saw the world, a lot differently. I started out my Marine Corps career as a parachute rigger. That was my first MOS. So, had to go to jump school before I even went to my MOS school. And then once we got over to the First Force Reconnaissance Company, that's when indoctrination, I guess, there's literally the event called Indoc where you go out and it's, kind of a suck fest for a while. And a lot of guys don't pass it the first time. I did not. I failed my run by about 2 minutes, 10-mile run with a rucksack for, uh, you know, 10 miles or something like that. And it was just like, man, I failed by 2 minutes. I got to do this whole thing over again. And so it kind of,
How long does that take?
a rucksack run.
Yeah,
Yeah, it
yeah,
was
for 10 miles. How what's
less than 2 hours. I think it was like right at right at 2 hours, and I was, like, I'm still here. I think we
Okay.
got to, just 2 minutes over, man, and they're like, "Yeah, man."
Wow.
They don't tell you. They don't tell you till the very end. Like you complete everything. You just don't quit, and like they're like, "Hey, man," they bring you in for your brief. You did well on everything except this, and so for the next month, go out and work on it, then come back and take it again. And so you go into a training platoon and all that kind of stuff. So at any rate, yeah, went over for the initial invasion in 2003, and was home in 5 months, and then we turned around and went back in April of 2004 with the 11th Marine Expeditionary Unit, and that was a hell of a trip. I mean, we got into country around July 4th, and then we went into Najaf. That was kind of our forward operating base area, and Najaf was just a hotbed. The Spanish had taken had control before we got there, and it was kind of the Wild West. You couldn't go anywhere near the town without getting rocketed or mortared or anything like that. And first day we were there, man, the Marines took control of the town, changed command, and we picked a fight with the Mahdi militia, which was Muqtada daughter for any of the history buffs out there, which was weird because he was a Shiite and we were actually supposed to be there helping the Shiites. And so this is where cracks start to form, and the understanding of like what we were doing overseas and all that kind of stuff, right? And so we had the Battle of Najaf, and the Marines got these guys surrounded in this place. It's called the Imam Ali Shrine, and it's the second holiest site in all of Islam. And so we were about to blow this thing off the map. I mean, just absolutely drop JDAMs all over it. And Muqtada al-Sadr and the Grand Ayatollah Sistani, they brokered a peace deal with some bureaucrats out of D.C., probably State Department people, who knows. And at that point, the Marines that had been battling these dudes, I don't know, a couple weeks, I think, they had to watch these dudes just walk out under a white flag. And it was one of those moments where you're like, what are we doing here? Like, what happened? And, you kind of fast forward during that trip, we got to work with ODA, which is Operational Detachment Alpha. It's a Army SF type of guys, right? So A teams. And we were doing like force multiplication and all that crazy stuff. And then we got called up for Fallujah in 2004. That was the second Battle of Fallujah. And I mean, that was really kind of a really terrible battle. It took a lot of people's lives, and destroyed an entire city. I mean, absolutely just crushed a city over there. And you saw war up close and very personal. I mean, it was house to house. It was the first time we had done a campaign like that since Waste City in Vietnam, and probably one of the largest urban battles for the United States Marine Corps that's ever taken place. So pretty nuts. But the interesting thing was after you see all that death, destruction, and carnage, the book that was waiting for me back on bed after we got back to what was called the mech, the base, we got to the mech, and I had this book on my bed, and it was from a buddy of mine, avid readers. Like, if you were told that you will bring books on your deployments, because if you don't, you're going to be on working parties if you're not reading and learning, right? So this book was the John Taylor Gatto book, The Underground Education System of America, I think is the name of it. And basically John Taylor Gatto goes through his 30-year teaching career in New York City, and he's won Teacher of the Year multiple times over. And this guy lays out the history of where the American education system came from, and it came from Prussia. They wanted to create a homogenous culture that would give and do and sacrifice everything for the state. And they talked about moving citizens around their borders to different countries, with a kind of a can-do patriot attitude So that, when it came time to go and capture other people's treasure, conquer people, push borders, whatever they needed to do for the state, they had the compliance of a citizenry, which became very powerful. I think Horace Mann brought it over here in the 1870s, 1880s under the progressive movement. And then Ford and Carnegie got a hold of it and funded it and made sure that it was adopted by the states inside of the U.S. And boy, it was just a fast push right up to Jimmy Carter in the 70s, right, to make the education system a national education system that was regulated by the federal government. And once you read through this and understand just how awful and evil and how humans should have never allowed the state to indoctrinate them. I mean, because they can do terrible things, they can tax you, and they can manipulate you into running overseas for quote unquote freedom, and it's got nothing to do with any of it. It's got to do with the banks and the zombie corporations and the political class. And boy, to learn that lesson in a war zone after you just got out of one of the biggest battles in the world, that's where I had decided like this was it. I'm not going to reenlist. I'm not staying. Tomorrow and the next day and until we leave this hellhole, like it can't go fast enough now. And that was it, man. That was the Marine Corps career. I got back, taught some swimming to some Marines before I got out, and water safety courses and all that kind of stuff. And once that was done, I was done, and man, got out and never really looked back. Didn't miss it. Didn't do any of that kind of stuff. Missed my buddies a lot. But that put me on the path to Ron Paul. And, when that little guy in a suit started talking about what the American military did overseas, and, not because they were dumb, but because most of us were indoctrinated to be there. And the brass was, either hungry enough for power to let those commands do those things to us. Like it's one of those things where you're like, hey man, that little dude with a big suit down on the end that everybody calls nuts, that guy's exactly right. When he talks about blowback, guy's exactly right. It took me a while to learn that, hey, Ron Paul was really great at economics. I should probably learn economics, like all those kind of things. Like Ron Paul was one of those guys that had the highest military support out of all the candidates. And it's because the guy was speaking the truth from a kind of a position of authority, since he was a pilot back in the day. So pretty interesting guy.
Yeah, yeah, that's amazing that your consciousness shifted like that. It's amazing how a single book can do that to you. Especially in a time period where perceptually you're probably it's something is going to resonate with you more. Perhaps maybe you can speak on that. I don't know. Being that it was just right after combat or soon thereafter, as I understand.
Yeah, I mean, pretty big revelation, time and place, right? Is to experience that in that time and place. It does a few things, right? I mean, when you're first reading it, and like most time when I was reading, I was laying in a bottom bunk with a bunk, on top of me in this really crappy old tent, um, and got all the guys around and all that kind of stuff, all doing whatever they're doing, reading, kind of trying to decompress after that kind of crap. And you got to sit there and kind of be like, yo, holy, like, I don't know if I swear on your show or not, but it's just like one of
Yeah,
those,
yeah,
like,
go for it. Yeah, I'm gonna
it's
turn
a
off my camera for a second. I'm still here though. Just yeah,
it's
keep going,
cool.
please. Yeah,
It's
please
kind
feel
of
free
like
to swear.
it's like one of those holy fuck moments, and I mean that because like you're like if you gave this book to the guys that were around you that haven't read it yet, they would guarantee you same thing. And that's why so many of them got out once we got back. I mean, most of the damn platoon got out. And keep that kind of
Mhm.
tucked in, because what you don't want is when you're going on your next mission for people to be scared, for people to think that their lives have been cheapened because like to get through missions, you got to have everybody on point and you got to have everybody dialed in like right now into the moment with like all those spidey senses and everything else going to make sure you get home at the end of the day.
Mhm.
And so like that moment of revelation, not to be able to share that, to keep it in, to kind of harbor until kind of late February, I think is when we finally got back from that. I mean, to mission after like you're just like, how am I going to do these? How am I going to get through going outside the wire again, going to do what they used to call a hit, where you're rolling some dudes up or um you know taking down an IED maker, something like that. I don't know, it's just how do you tell yourself go out there and do this for freedom anymore, right? And once
Mhm.
that settles into your chest and you're just like, shit, like, they don't talk to you about being a conscientious objector. They talk about, requesting mass. If you want to request mass, which means, your direct leader is something, you can't talk to them about. So you go over their head. It's one of those practices like you're,
Oh,
well, don't do that kind of shit, right? And like I'm not really requesting mass because somebody's broken a law or is in violation of anything. Like they're all within good standing UCMJ outstanding Marines for every for everybody. It's just now if you've just got this like if you knew about requesting mass then or I should say the not requesting mass, the God, I just said it, being a conscientious objector. If you were doing that, man,
okay. Yep.
yeah, just that's one of those things where I think a lot of guys would have been like, "Yeah, I think we're done. I think I'm gonna go home. I'm no longer doing this because it's nonsense. It's just it's bullshit." So yeah, that was
Mhm.
a rough
Mhm.
moment, man, real rough. And to kind of go through the rest of the book. I mean, I devoured the book and then went back and read a couple of chapters over again just to kind of have that better understanding. And I mean, geez, what Pete John Taylor Gatto wrote prolifically, and as soon as I got home, tried to find every other book he ever wrote. I think Weapons of Mass Instruction came out not long after that, Dumbing Us Down, like all these fantastic books. And I think it's one of the greatest things in
Mhm.
the world for me to be able to share with people because now, you know, everybody's got, a lot of people have that in common. If you're trying to help people understand what they're up against, nobody wants to be a fool. And, uh, you know, especially when you're an adult, you want to be that person that anybody made a fool of. You don't want to be somebody else's I don't know, whipping boy or good time or any of that kind of stuff, right? Like you don't want to be those things in life.
Sure.
And when you
Mhm.
can
Mhm.
help people understand that most everybody goes to a government indoctrination center as a kid, starting at age 5 until you're 18, and you stand up and you talk about nonsense all day long, and you say the Pledge of Allegiance in the morning every day you're in school. You're indoctrinated, and that's one of those things where you can say, "Hey, man, it's okay." Most of us were indoctrinated, and we've got that in common. And there are a lot of things that I didn't understand that I have found a lot of answers to. And if you're interested, here's a book. And then you just got to give people time. You got to give people time and let their own soul do some searching and let their brains start working because
Sure.
they're going to have to start devouring information to try to keep up.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Yeah. And you mentioned a phrase, roll some dudes up. You mean like take some tangos into your enemy combatants into custody without killing them? Is that what you meant by that phrase? Or
Goes, yeah. The objective every time is in and out without shots fired. You don't want to do that.
right?
So yeah,
Right.
yeah. If you're rolling up in I mean, quote unquote assassination squads to high value targets, HVT is what we used to call them. There was doing hostage rescue, you name it, man. Like there was a million type of direct action missions back in the day, and everybody was doing them. That was I guess SOC or SOC qualified.
Okay. And then what's that acronym stand for again?
Special operations.
Okay. Yeah. Can you share anything about that? yeah, like a story or I mean, because you were doing recon, did what you were at doing from day to day, did that change several times while you were deployed, or was it mostly the same thing?
Yeah. So you know, reconnaissance, especially force reconnaissance, their mission set, there's kind of two different types of mission sets. You have what we train for in workups, which is called the green side, which is more like your long range patrols. A lot of times you're tasked with insertion behind enemy lines, whether it's through Halo, Hey-Ho, or dive operations, to infiltrate behind enemy lines and kind of be the eyes and ears of the Marine Expeditionary Force or the Marine Expeditionary Unit, really for whatever the commander's intent was. And so that's more of the green side mission, in, out, no contact, no nothing, just real deep reconnaissance. And then after that, you've got the dark side, black side, which is direct action. Direct action is where a group of guys, in total, body armor and everything else, will roll up on a building or a vessel for that matter and take it down. And so we will do everything from oil tankers to platforms to any type of building type of entry, and you go in explosive entry and all that kind of stuff. So it's very intense. The trainings, you shoot for months and months and months on a range, and but yeah, I mean, some of the I guess the stories, and not to glorify war or anything, but the men themselves, really some of the most impressive guys I've ever met in my life. Smart, absolutely dedicated to their craft in terms of like it's not just a dumb man's game of going out and killing. You're learning all the time, whether it's the life support systems that you're using to jump out of planes or helicopters, or the Draeger systems that you're using for rebreathers, you name it. Like it's just always knowing something new. So the battles overseas, and like specific stories, I try to concentrate on a lot of the funnier ones, just
Sure.
because no, and there's a side of what we do that I don't think people understand, and I think it's one of the best mechanisms for people to help understand uh, bad times. No worse time than being in a battle, unless, like, especially if you're on the losing end of that battle, right? But even if you're on the winning side of that battle, it's not a good place to be. So you got to look for the light in a lot of darkness. And the guys that I was with, man, like just some of the funniest dudes ever, and could make a dark situation real funny, real fast. And so there was this one afternoon where we were tasked with going out to the northwest corner. The Euphrates River bends north, right before it comes into Fallujah, and there's a lot of farmland out there, just green as green can be, canals, you name it. It's kind of beautiful. Date palm groves and all that kind of stuff. Complete separation from the desert that's just beyond the railroad tracks, and which is not, I don't know, maybe 500-600 yards away from where it bends. And to be walking through there to try to find a place to be, in a sniper hide and all that kind of stuff, it's a surreal feeling. And you're walking along, and as we're coming up on the place where we end up staying for the night, we come across this damn donkey that is, wearing a hole in the ground. There's no grass around him. He's just walking around in dirt. He's tied to this rope. I mean, it looks like something out of a Disney film. And like, you felt bad for him, man. Like, I don't know. I've never felt bad for donkeys except for when I was in Iraq, because the way they, there's an old saying, I'm going to beat that thing like a rented mule, right?
Mm,
And like,
mhm.
boy, you feel like that whole place is just full of rented mules, like the way they beat the hell out of them and everything else. But this donkey had been left tied up on a rope that couldn't have been more than like 7 feet long. So he's got this 14-foot, diameter that he's been walking around in for probably days. And so we got up to where we were staying that night, and the conversation started after we secured the building. I said, "Anybody feel bad for that donkey over there?" And they're like, "Yeah, man, that's a nice looking donkey. We should go out there and cut that thing loose." And a lot of times, if we were staying in some place like that, we would also we would go into places around us and find pillows or blankets or something like that, because the place we were in
Hmm.
didn't have any, and it was getting cold. I mean, it was mid to late November, so even in the desert, it gets cold as hell at night.
Hmm. Hmm.
And so we drew straws. Two of the unlucky guys went out. I'll just call them Mike and CJ. And what pursuit! Like, we're sitting there up top with our binoculars and watching these guys. Like, they're coming back. They got pillows and they got blankets and arms and all this kind of shit. And they're like, "Yeah, like, let's stop and get this donkey." So they they drop all the stuff in the dirt, and this guy has been there for 7 days, so there's some pits and shit around too. And when they're trying to get this donkey to get cut loose, man, he doesn't want anything to do with them, so he keeps like running around in circles, and he's like, he's kicking, he's trying to bite them. He's mean as hell. We're
Yeah.
just watching
Yeah.
fold. And I mean, we are dying, and they finally got this thing cut loose and kind of charged through them, and ran off into the sunset. And it was just it's one thing I will never ever forget, man.
Yeah.
And you just you find some beauty and some humor in some of the darkest situations, and it's just one of those things
Hmm.
that you try to help people pass on when they're going through some dark times.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. Great story there. Very funny with the donkey. Definitely not something you probably are going to see twice. um,
I hope
but
not.
right, right. But how did you deal with coming back? Because I've heard that's difficult to readjust. And is it the same for everybody? Is there that sort of like people talk about the PTSD and such?
Yeah, man, coming back it's a trip, because I think some people know they have PTSD and they're like, "Yeah, yeah, I'm definitely traumatized, and give me that VA check," right? And I wasn't that guy. I was like, "Man, I want to be normal, so I'm just going to be normal." And oh, it's such a young man's way of deal. Like, I, I got this. Like, I just went and did all that kind of stuff. Like, I got PTSD. Like, get out of here. Like, I was in denial,
Oh, okay,
and I
sure.
I was such a high functioning, like, just go back, go finish my last year of school now out at UGA, and find uh, like this inner drive to just keep doing, you know, the op tempo that you always did. And so when that happened, it looks like, are you still getting a good signal?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me? Okay.
Okay. Yeah, it was just
Yep.
it was flashing a little bit, so I didn't
Okay.
know if
No, yeah, I
um
can still hear you. Yep.
okay. So yeah, when I came back, I mean, I just got after it, and I was like, "Yeah, I'm good." So I think it's probably about 2014, 2015, where I had some enlightenment from some psychedelics somewhere, and
Sure.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and it was one of those things where I was just like, "Huh, maybe I have some PTSD," right? Like, not in a
Yeah.
bad way,
Yeah.
but like just seeing the world from a different perspective. And what it did was it gave me back my empathy. And
Yeah.
when I
Yeah.
started to have empathy, I realized just how, like, badly my stress was, right? And my
Yeah.
and I say that in the way that it wasn't like I was always stressed out. It was that I was always making situations more stressful than they needed to be by, you know, concentrating on what needed to be done and not the people around me. Right. So it's mission, 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 mission the entire time you're in the Marine Corps. It is, it's drilled into you, right? And there's nothing more important. So when that happened, yep, that was the wake up call. And I was just like, huh, all right, got to
Wow.
work on this. And so, yeah, man, the empathy came back, and everything else was one of those things that kind of helped, fix itself. And I don't know, I think post traumatic stress is one of those things that you manage for life. I don't think it's one of those things that
Yeah.
poof,
Yeah. Yeah.
right. And this
Right.
thing is it's not just veterans either, man. It's life. People have stressful moments in their life, and everybody handles that kind of stuff differently. So it's something that we got to get under control here in America. That's for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. And how old were you when you had that experience? You said it was
Um,
2015 or so?
maybe 2014, 20 somewhere in there. I don't,
Yeah.
not a specific date for sure.
Yeah, or whenever. Yeah. It was,
Yeah.
I don't know if, but yeah, it was. I was just wondering because something similar happened, and it's so difficult to put into words, But I actually read that Johns Hopkins is doing a study about using it to treat well, in particular psilocybin to treat like treatment resistant major depressive disorder, for example.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
so it's
amazing.
very
Yeah. The
very interesting.
psilocybin work they're doing is amazing right now. I mean, the fact that like, you can possibly just go use it one time and have
Yeah,
such
yeah,
profound effects. You're just like, I'm good.
yeah, yeah. It's wow. It's again, it's and even people who maybe are it's impossible to put into words. I think I don't know if it really is. I don't know. I mean, people try though, and I think you can get close to it. But yeah, it's interesting, and that that's something too that I'm sure is, or maybe if you want to talk about it being part of your platform in terms of certainly marijuana is you know
I mean,
still in
all of it.
discussion. Hmm.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. Like, I look at things. First of all, I don't trust the sum of the government, right, to be good. Like, they're murderers and thieves and coercive liars and things like that. So the idea that they're going to have the hubris to tell you first and foremost that plants or fungi or ergot or whatever it is uh a natural substance that you can't have it, like, come on guys. That's
Hmm.
pretty crazy. And then just the idea that you own yourself. So, man, you're peaceful. I don't care what you do. I really don't care at the end of the day. And it's not my business to monitor or to have somebody try to monitor or punish you for being a peaceful person. And I think I mean, you just get down to the basics of it. Is the law moral? No. It doesn't stop murder, rape, theft, coercion, kidnapping, or any of those things. It's just the real violence in the world isn't stopped by any of these things, and not, in fact, laws don't stop those things. People that want to do terrible stuff usually do terrible stuff.
Hmm. Hmm. And often they're the people who are making the laws, so there's that aspect of it,
Yeah,
which is it's a
shit.
problem. Um, uh, but I want to be respectful of your time, Shane, and hopefully we can chat some more. Maybe we can make this a regular thing leading up to this primary, because I'm interested to know your take too on for example, your opponents or Georgia politics in general, because it does seem to have gained prominence, at least nationally, very recently. I remember when I was first covering, the election stuff in 2020. I was like, wow, I didn't realize how important Atlanta and Georgia is. But now you got like Trevor Noah moving to Atlanta, and more and more people realizing how important it is as a battleground state, perhaps more so than any other state. I mean, just look at how much money the establishment is putting into this election. It's ridiculous. I mean, Warnock. almost $90 million. I mean, like he's got more than like the next like 3 candidates combined or something crazy. Uh,
Mhm.
Likewise, Stacey Abrams is, I think, the most well-funded gubernatorial candidate nationwide, if
Mhm.
I'm not
By
mistaken.
far.
But yeah, and so they're putting their money. It's not like I'm just like it's not just a media phenomenon. It's they're putting their money where their mouth is too, in terms of, oh, they not only are perceived to think that Georgia is the most important, they believe it because that's the way they're behaving. So yeah, it's very interesting the way. I don't know. I mean, you're from Georgia, right? So
Yep. Well, I grew up here. Like I was born in
mhm,
Michigan, but spent a very small amount of my life there. So, yep.
mhm,
Yep.
yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah. Just like what's your take on that as a it must be interesting. Your kind of home state being the most important, perhaps, in terms of the geopolitical stage.
Interesting times, man. It's kind of the keystone state of the South, right? I mean, everything runs through Georgia, whether it's 75, 85, 95, in terms of transit. It's got a giant port. They have one of the, busiest airports in the world. And they are, one hell of an agricultural state that, can do some amazing things, not to mention the geography here. Um, it's awesome. I mean, you've got the
It's
coast, you've got
amazing. It's
yeah,
amazing. Yeah, it really
you want
is.
it here. It's not California where you're going to go, surf and
Sure.
then in the mountains in 10 minutes. But for the East Coast, it's a sportsman's paradise.
Yeah,
It's
very diverse. Yeah.
Yeah, if you don't like snow, then we've got your back here. Like it's I don't know. For me, it's one of those really cool places. I've been a lot of places in this world, and the culture is pretty amazing because you'll have anybody and everybody that's here. I mean, if you can't find it in Atlanta, Savannah, the mountains, the metro area, South Georgia, then it probably doesn't exist on Earth, right? And that's one thing that I've really seen, not only like living here as a kid, because obviously times have changed a lot, but
Mhm.
it's just one of those really neat things to see. So I guess when you see people like Stacy and Brian that want to control these people, it's like these people don't need you to control them. What they need is freedom. What they need is to be left alone at the end of the day. They need to be able to run their businesses and teach their kids, and I don't know, just find whatever route that gives them happiness, and pursuing happiness. And
Mhm.
for the life of me, I don't look at Stacy or Brian as, just I don't know, evil, evil, evil people. Man, maybe Brian is. I think Stacy's, maybe a little more better. I don't know. Like I don't know these people, but I can tell you that they mean to rule people, right? And that's at the end of the day, that's wrong. There was a war 200 plus years ago over it, like 244 years ago. Like we fought a war about this kind of
Mhm.
stuff to say, hey, leave us alone. The Declaration of Independence, and that's where it should have all stopped. Uh, you know,
Yeah.
I
Lots of
am
people have died. Yeah, yeah. That's
yeah,
a fair
like
point.
I'm not
Yeah.
saying it was perfect, and I'm saying we can do better in the
Mm.
future. Um, but we're never going to be better than the people of old if we don't set each other free. And that's everybody. It's every man, woman, and child. And these guys don't understand how to do it. They don't understand that this is an economic thing. And that's, I think, where we're going to excel is because we can speak to everybody through what's in their bank account. We can speak to everybody, that goes out and busts their ass for a living. Hey, man, all I want you to do is keep more of what you've earned. And I want that money that's in your bank account to be worth the same thing tomorrow that it's worth today instead of being inflated into infinity. That's the one thing that I don't think those guys either care to study or don't want to free people, because if you can take out
Mm.
the infection that is the Federal Reserve and US fiat currency out of every transaction that we have with each other, then what you've done is effectively created a peer-to-peer market that is free of the coercion and free of the force that is the state. And man, for me, this is one of those golden opportunities to teach people, hey, you and that guy over there, that woman, that child, you guys aren't different. You want to live your lives in peace. You want to be left alone. And I guarantee you they do too. Maybe you guys go about some things differently, but at the end of the day, if I can help spread that knowledge, hey, we can do this peacefully and we can do this through economics, and you guys don't have to talk politics at all. Just leave each other alone. Hey, I got something for you. I got a new way for you guys to transact, and it is going to change the world.
Yeah. Yeah. And you're just talking about cryptocurrency, correct?
Oh, I'm Bitcoin in particular. Like I'm a
Yeah.
Bitcoin maximalist for a lot of reasons, and yeah,
Okay.
it's
Okay. Why is that? Yeah.
why Bitcoin in general.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
All right.
or in particular, as opposed to another crypto, or maybe your own crypto. That's a new thing, right? Is people are
Oh,
making their own
yeah. So yeah, so
cryptocurrencies.
I could get into cryptos being more of a security than it is a commodity. But let's speak English for people, right? Um,
Okay. Yeah.
there there are five principles. Well, I said five. There's there's principles of hard money. Karl Menger came up with them. Prussian guy back in, I believe, the 1800s or whatever it was. Anyway, one of the first Austrian economists, if not the first Austrian economist, and what he talked about was being saleable, liquid over time, space, and scales. So gold satisfied this very well for a very long time until it was centralized, and then when they centralized it, then they started doing this fake stuff where they'd give you paper for your gold. When it was dispersed and it was coin and it was not controlled through every transaction, and you could just trade gold. Things actually improved around the world drastically. First time in the world, first time in a long time, you had, like, no kidding, a very hard currency, a very high stock to flow ratio. And so when they talk about hard money and coin the term, they talked about the principles: saleable over time, space, and scales. Is it easily inflatable? Gold was not. You had to have proof of work. Yeah, like gold was proof of work, that you went out and you sacrificed and you pulled some stuff out of the ground, got it to market, melted it down, and then made it into a coin so that people could, like, trade, because it was fractional, it was divisible, and it could be inflated out of existence. So that was one of those things that changed the world. So if it can't be inflated very fast, it's very hard. It means that it's not saleable over time. If it's saleable over space, which means it can move pretty easily from one person to another person around the world. So gold, was this kind of one world currency for a while, where it moved all around the world. There was different markings and all that kind of stuff, but basically it weighed the same. So you could sit there and say, hey, you know what? This is worth this. Cool. In any language, in any place around the world. And trade, man, we were told a bunch of lies about trade back in the day in terms of history classes and all that kind of stuff. So totally different subject. But then you get into scalability. Well, there's enough gold on Earth to be traded, right? It's not great over scales, liquid over scales. So can you divide it? Yes, you can divide it. With better technology, you can divide it better. So gold's still a pretty hard money. The problem today is Bitcoin has become harder, because it is all of those things and more. Gold is actually inflatable about 1.3 to 1.5, maybe 2% per year, depending on what the demand is for it.
Okay.
Bitcoin,
Okay. Why is that?
because you
Why
can
does
always pull more out of the ground, right? So
Oh, okay. I
gold,
gotcha.
yeah. So if you're adding to the total tonnage or total supply of gold,
Mhm.
the stock to flow ratio is high, but it may not be the highest anymore, right? And so
Sure.
it's not
Yeah.
in it's it 1.3. Now, we've never really had a currency that's been deflationary. Bitcoin's actually deflationary. There's 21 million forever. That's it. So it can't ever
Oh,
be in yeah, Can't
It
ever
is
be inflated.
deflationary due to what? Human error, basically, right?
Yes, because people will lose Bitcoin. So if there's
Yeah.
21 million and people lose it forever, it means what you've got is going to be worth more every time somebody loses Bitcoin ever. And it's also going to be worth more as more of it is mined, because right now we're down to 9%. 9% is all that's left for miners to mine of Bitcoin. So it is
Wow.
so Bitcoin is harder than gold in terms of its saleability over time. Over space,
Mhm.
it moves extremely quickly. We're talking about around the world to do remittance from peer to peer right now on the Lightning Network. We're talking about
Yeah.
billions of transactions a second, way more than
Yeah.
MasterCard,
Yeah.
way more than Visa, and at a lower cost, like a
Yes.
fraction of the cost. And then you got scales. There are, what is it, 2.1 quadrillion? Quadrillion? Is that what it is? 2.1 quadrillion Satoshis, 21 million Bitcoin, right? So
Okay.
every Bitcoin is made up of 100 million Satoshis. And when you talk about scaling that over a world population of 7-8 billion, no problem, easy, right? The average probably going to be about 4,000. At the end of the day, if you spread it equally among everybody, it'd be about 4,000. So it meets the criteria for hard money better than gold meets hard money principles. And then you add on top of it proof of work. Proof of work is what happens when miners use energy to mine Bitcoin to put it on the chain so that people can now exchange and buy it. So the miners get paid first, right? So there's proof of work, and there's a benefit to using that energy that is going to cost them money and equipment and time and know-how and all that kind of stuff. And now they're going to turn around and they're going to sell that kind of stuff, right? They're going to look for the lows in the market and they're going to go, bam, I'm getting rid of my supply. There's only 9% left, by the way. And we're going to have another halving here in, I think, a little over a year. So when we go through halving periods, whew, boy, I hope you're stocked up on Bitcoin beforehand. So at any rate, that's why Bitcoin is different, because everything else is either a copy that won't have the hashing power ever to keep up, right time, right place, right stuff, or it's mimicking and trying to become the next Bitcoin on its own, and it has a board of directors and it's centralized, and people will keep changing things like ETH, right? Like Ethereum. If you're in Ethereum, they've hard forked I don't know how many times now. And Michael Saylor was talking about this the other day. Like, if you hard fork, well, you're about 10 years away from proof of concept. And every time you hard fork, you're saying that your code didn't work. So the more you hard fork, you're saying, well, the code wasn't ready, it didn't work, we need another version of this kind of stuff. And ETH is the second best performing quote unquote crypto out there. And it's not even close, especially when it comes down to hard principles. Because if somebody can manipulate it, somebody can change, the rules that govern it. If there is a governing body that can change the rules of it, it's not hard. And that's the thing, is Bitcoin, that can't happen. You either play by Bitcoin's rules or you don't play. And that's kind of cool, because now you've got this thing that's called like an unbreakable constitution. Can you imagine if the Constitution was actually like hard and real, and
Right.
people
Right.
couldn't break it? Yeah, it would
Yeah.
be
Yeah.
badass, right? So like that's the difference between cryptos and Bitcoin. And it is, we can go on and on and on about what it is and what it does and how it's going to bring back a real renaissance and creation of people and their abilities and their passions, and how it's going to change, morals in society again, how it's going to get people to like stop selling themselves cheap and kind of hoarding themselves out. Like it's gotten to that point where fiat has corrupted culture, because it's spend, uh, and consume, and you can't be spenders and consumers as a race, as a species. You've got to create things for other people or for your community or for yourself, like whatever it is, so you don't starve. Like, that's just nature. And well, I'll tell you what, this kind of writes the whole thing, and it gives people the right incentive to go out and have peaceful transactions with each other. Because here's the other thing about Bitcoin is when you have your Bitcoin on your seed words on your keys, right? Your little, cold wallet,
Mhm.
those are yours. Nobody can take those from you. You're your own bank now. And so if the government comes and they want to take my money, kick in my door and burn down my house, you know what they're not going to get? They're not going to get my money. And if I've got those seed words backed up either here or
Mhm.
in, a steel wallet somewhere, I can
Mhm.
take my money over borders. I can go anywhere, do anything with it. And when I get there, my money will be there. It takes the force and coercion incentive away from the government. And that's
Right.
something I think the Federal Reserve knows about. I think the WEF knows about it. And I think they are scared to death. And I think that's why they're pushing, obviously, on CBDCs here, which are central bank digital currencies. It's like any other crypto. Only the government is in control of it, and they will not have any competition. Like
Yeah.
that's what they want. They don't want any competition. And the thing is, they can't beat Bitcoin, so we're good.
Mhm. Yeah. And basically the idea there at the extreme end is, and I'm just going to use this person because it's of the example. I don't know if there's something deeper going on there or what, but this guy Nick Fuentes had a lot of money taken by the FBI, um,
Hmm.
and I mean, the government, they can do that to anyone for any reason, anytime, um, and that's why it's like, well, I guess it's not that big a deal that I'm poor because the government can't take all my money. But that's messed up, is that they can really do that. They can seize all your assets, just because a few people in a bureaucracy somewhere said, "Well, this guy is, we don't like him or he's under investigation," which, I'm not really arguing about whether or not in certain cases that, maybe is warranted, but basically what that means is people with guns can come and take your money just because they have guns, basically, right? I mean, that's the
Yeah.
way I see it.
Well, I mean, that's the thing is like we homestead and we homeschool, and I got my property tax bill this year here in Georgia, and it was twice as much as last year. I was like, what on earth? We don't use your public school. We don't want to use your public school. I fundamentally disagree with your public school. I have not signed a contract with you in any form whatsoever, and so to protest this, right, is you know you guys are a you guys are an organization that I have fundamental disagreements with. And you're going to show up at my house with dudes with badges and guns, and you're going to say, "Give us your shit." I mean, really. That's exactly at the end of the day, that's what they're doing. They're thugs, and they work for the
Mhm.
banks, and at the end of the day, they will come out, your sheriff and his deputies, and they'll take your shit and they'll kick you out of your house, and if you resist hard enough, they'll kill you.
Exactly.
And that
That's
that's the
exactly.
problem,
Yeah.
right? So Bitcoin, hey man, what are you gonna do? I mean, you're gonna come out here, you're gonna kill me, take my stuff, take my money, freeze my no, you're not. Like, that's not gonna happen anymore. And if you get enough people like that in an area, things change fast. So it's one of the things that I'm super excited about because liberty's great. Talking about liberty's great. The vehicle to get us there is here now. And whether you're a libertarian, whether you're Democrat, whether you're a Republican, all those things kind of melt away at the end of the day when you've got the economic keys to culture. You can sit there and say, listen, guys, I just want you to be left alone. I want you to be safe. I want your bank accounts to be fine. I don't want anybody to ever be able to tell you where and what you can and cannot spend your money on. It's yours. That's
Mhm.
that's that's power.
Yeah. Yeah, and hopefully we can, because you obviously know quite a bit about this topic. If we talk again, you can kind of teach people how they can how they can
Sure.
do that, or tools and such. But where could people find you, Shane? And final asks or anything you haven't covered tonight before we sign off.
Yeah. Hey, Eddie, first of all, thanks, man, for doing this.
Of course.
It's
Thank you.
been fun.
Likewise.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
The my website is shanehazel.com. It'll take you to radicalpod.com. I share it with myself. It's my podcasting site and my governor run. There are t-shirts on there. If you want to help the campaign, you donate there. There is the Helios initiative that I launched there, which will help you take back over the sheriff's office and the mayor's office, which will get the overrun government out of your life at a local level. And I guess this Saturday, I'm going to be speaking out at the Faith Over Fear Loganville event. So if you want to come out, hear some more, and hang out with some good people, Lucretia Hughes is throwing that. I think Saria Ivy is helping. So we've got Republicans that are already on board for this whole thing, and we're going to go out and take that message to their crowd as well. So it's going to be pretty cool. But Addie, I appreciate you, man. Thank you very much for having me on.
Likewise, Shane. This is really fun. Really interesting topics, and I think the viewers enjoyed it too. I will add all of Shane's links to the description box as well. This is on Rockfin, and stay frosty, folks. And we will see everybody next time.